You can stop here. Recover. Continue. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, so the opposite hand is still working. You're never resting on your leg. It swings with the kettlebell. So use both sides of your body. And where's the midline of your body? So the movement should not be to the side. It's in front, right in the center. Good. Okay. Don't rest your hand, the left hand, never here. Okay, swings. Yeah. Good. Okay, let's set it down. You're doing well. Good job. Okay, any questions? So initially the movement may seem complex, but you understand the components. Everything is more natural. Okay, and you're all doing really well, looking good. So now we're going to do what we'll call a training set. So that was more of a practice set to make sure that the mechanics are correct. Now we're going to apply it, an example of how you may use it for conditioning or how you use it in a workout. And so with the kettlebell, there's three variables that are manipulated in a given training session. So for example, in one session or during a training period, which could be maybe a 4-week or 6-week or 8-week. But there's three variables that we mix, okay? One is the weight of the kettlebell. So you can use a light kettlebell, a moderate, heavy, even very heavy, depending on your training goal, okay? So we can change the weight of the kettlebell, which will change the training effect. Another factor is the volume, which is the number of repetitions, okay? Or the time. So those are kind of used together, the time. In other words, I can train for 30 seconds, or I can train for 1 minute, or I can train for 3 minutes, or I can train for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, right? And so naturally, the longer the time of the set, the more repetition you're going to do. It's like running. So if I run 1 mile, maybe it takes me 6 minutes. And maybe I run 9 minutes, I cover 1.5 miles, okay? Or maybe I run for 12 minutes and I cover 2 miles. So the longer the time, the longer the more volume, the more repetition. So we can change the weight, we can change the duration, how long you're working, and we can change the speed. The speed we measure in repetition per minute, okay? So for example, let's say that we're all doing the same weight. Let's say that everyone is using 12 kilogram, for example, or any number, okay? But let's say we're all using 12 kilogram, so the weight is constant, and we're all working for, say, 3 minutes. The time is constant, but maybe you're doing 10 repetition per minute, you're doing 15 repetition per minute, you're doing 20 repetition per minute, I'm doing 6 repetition per minute. We see that after the 3 minutes, the volume is completely different, right? So it's the weight times the repetition gives you the volume of tonnage lifted or weight lifted, okay? And of these variables, the time is really the most important foundationally, because in order to have your best performance, you need to find the pace or the speed that enables you to finish the time. Okay? So in other words, Again, the analogy, this is like endurance training, mostly endurance training. So the analogy might be similar to running or to cycling or to swimming, any type of aerobic activity. Let's say that we're going to run 3 miles. Okay, we're all going to run for 3 miles, so the distance is fixed. It's 3 miles for every person, but a more experienced runner, they're going to cover the distance in less time. So maybe your pace is a 6 minute per mile. Someone else, it takes them 8 minutes to run the same mile. Okay, so similarly, let's say with the kettlebell, we're going to do 100 reps. Okay, you're working at 10 reps per minute, so it will take you 10 minutes to finish the 100 reps. I'm working at 20 reps per minute. It takes me 5 minutes to finish the same 100 reps. Okay, so that's the idea. What's important is that we set the time goal. So we're going to work, for example, for 3 minutes. You have to be able to finish, okay, because the time is the distance. So if our goal is to run a mile, Americans, we're so arrogant with our unique measurement. Let's say you're going to run 1,600 meters, okay, which is about the same, a little off by a few meters. But let's say you're going to run a 1,600 meter. If you are in front, but you stop after 1,500 meter, then you still get 0 because you didn't finish the distance. Where someone, maybe they were slower, but they didn't stop and they finished the distance, they actually beat you, even though you were faster for the first 1,500 meters. So it's the legend of the tortoise and the hare, okay? Which is the one who finishes is the one who persists, the one who is patient versus rushing. And so the instinct, the tendency, most people in training is to always go fast and go as hard as possible until they can't go anymore. They hit the wall. Instead, you want to learn to scale back, go a little bit slower. Okay, so if I'm gonna do like 1 minute with a moderate weight, I can go super fast because it's not a very long time. Okay, so I can go 30 or more reps per minute without a problem. Okay, but if I'm going to work with the same weight in 10 minutes, I'm going to slow it down. If I was going to work for 20 minutes, I would slow it further. Okay, so that's the concept of what's called pacing, which is used interchangeably with speed or tempo. So sometimes we say speed, tempo, pace. It basically defines the same thing. It's the speed that you're going in repetition per minute, or rate per minute, or rate per unit of time, but we use the minute because it's easy to calculate. Okay, so you understand the concept? And that's very important versus thinking, okay, I'm going to just go as hard as I can, and maybe you do 30 or 40 and you have to stop because your pace was too fast for that objective, for that distance or time. Instead, it's better to go slow. So, for example, maybe you're going to run a marathon. You've never run a marathon. Maybe you've only run a 10K, but you never ran a marathon, but you decide to try it. You're not going to run fast the first mile. Okay, you're going to go really slow. And then over the course of the race, maybe if you get to the last few miles and you feel good, then you're going to increase the pace and go faster. If you start fast, too fast, you'll never finish and get to the end. So if you're not sure, it's better to start slow. You can always speed up as you progress instead of starting too fast. Does that make sense? Okay, so what we're going to do is just a challenge. We're going to do a 4-minute set. Okay, it may be a challenge if you're not used to it. If you're used to it, then maybe it's not a challenge, in which case you need a heavier kettlebell. Okay, but we're going to do a 4-minute set. So what that means is we're going to do 2 minutes on this hand. At the 2-minute mark, we're going to switch and do 2 minutes. So that's a 4-minute set. We don't put it down. And now I'm not going to tell you how many repetitions. You can do 1 repetition per minute, or maybe 10, or maybe 6, or maybe 20. That's individual. Depends on how you feel. What's important is that you work for the entire time. So you go at a comfortable pace. When you get tired, you stay here, and this is where you can recover. And when you feel recovered, then you go back into it again. Okay? So that's how we're going to do it. I'm going to get my timer, and just give it a shot. Do your best. Okay, 1 minute. Okay. Okay, so, oops. What happened? Okay. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Begin. So you don't have to follow my pace. You create your own pace, as fast or slow as you feel. One minute remaining on this hand. Change hands without putting it down. If you're winded, you stay here. Take a few recovery breaths. Both hands moving together. Your eyes follow the bell. So look down, look up. The rear hand swings. So you never rest your hand on your thigh. It's always active. Last minute. Okay. Congratulations, everyone, for finishing. Nobody quit, so that was really great. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of taste of the true kettlebell in the sense of how we're manipulating the time and the speed. Okay, in this case the weight is fixed, but it applies to any weight that you're using, whether you're going up or down in weight. It's the same principle. Okay, and in this way we're able to develop a very high level of work capacity. And a big key is to be able to control your pacing. So again, if you go too fast, you'll get a good conditioning, but you won't be able to finish. Okay? If you go too slow, you'll be able to finish, but you won't necessarily achieve your best results. So you want to go as fast as you can while maintaining the pace. Okay? And this will apply to pretty much any type of lift that you're doing. So you always, sometimes we train just by reps. So sometimes you may say, okay, do 20 reps or do 10 reps or do 30 reps. So that's one way of training. But at other times, we're using time as the variable. So you set a goal, for example, I'm going to do a 6-minute set. And you don't necessarily pick a number goal, you just work for the whole 6 minutes. And then the pace will be according to how you feel. Some days you're going to feel stronger, you go a little faster. Other days you feel tired, you go a little slower. But you try to complete the time goal that you set. Because most of what we're doing in, not just in training, and really I think in life and most things that we do, but in the context of training, most of what we do is mental. Okay, so we have to have a very determination on achieving the goal. And it's a bad practice to set goals and not achieve them, because on a subconscious level we begin to lose confidence in our capacity to achieve our goals. And if you do that enough times, eventually you get discouraged and you stop setting goals and you stop progressing, you stop growing. So it's important to set goals and achieve the goals. And sometimes we set big goals and we don't achieve it, and that's okay too. The saying is, you know, you shoot for the stars and maybe you hit the moon, right? So it's good to set big goals that are maybe outside of your capacity, but not on a regular basis. Okay, as far as training, you want to normally set goals that will be a challenge, but that you know that you can do it. You know that it's within your capacity. So don't set the goal to do 1,000 reps if you're at 10 or 20. Maybe set, if you're at 20 today, maybe set a goal to do 30. It's a little bit outside, but it's within your field of vision. And then from there, you set a new goal. Now I try to do 50, okay? And then when I can do 50, maybe I try to do 100, okay? So that's the idea. And the time, when you set a goal, so if you say I'm going to do a 4-minute set, the most important factor is that you finish the 4 minutes. Even if you have to go slower. Maybe you thought you were going to do 20 reps per minute, but you ended up doing only 14 a minute. It's okay. That's better than putting it down after 3 minutes and just quitting, because you're developing this mentality of quitting. And it's important not to quit. It's important to always persevere, because momentum works in both directions. Momentum works in a positive. We have good results, and so we get more and more good results, but it also works in the negative. So if we make the habit of always stopping too soon, that becomes your subconscious expectation. So then you will quit in a time when maybe you can't afford to quit. Okay, so this is the way we use training to enhance our life, and not just our physical fitness, but the mentality can apply to other things that we have in goal, whatever that may be for you. Okay? All right, so everyone did a really good job with the clean. Now we're going to start working on some of the overhead movements. So next we're going to work on the press. Okay? Before we work the dynamic movement of the press, I want to spend a little bit of time on the overhead position. So the end position, we start from the clean, we press it overhead. So the overhead position is very important that your mechanics are correct, because the overhead position relates to all overhead exercises. So for example, press, push press, jerk, snatch, and any variation of those. We have other movements like overhead squat, windmill, and many other things. But the point is that your position in one is the same position for all. So every time you have the kettlebell overhead, you have the same alignment. Okay, so you want to develop the proper form. And so there's 3 variables in the overhead position. First of all, the arm is fully extended. So when you have the weight overhead, here I have not completed the movement. Okay, I have a laxity in the joint. I want to completely extend the joint so that we call it locked out. The weight is locked out. You have complete secure stabilization of the joints. Okay, so that's one important point. Next point is that the load should be aligned vertically over your center of mass and base of support. Okay, so our center of mass is basically our lower abdomen. Our base of support is what our stance is. Okay, and that can vary. Okay, and this can be a base of support, this can be a base of support, this can be a base of support. Okay, but in this case, our base of support is this. Okay, so the principle, center of mass, vertically aligned over the base of support. Why vertical? Because gravity enacts a vertical pull. Okay, so gravity gives a vertical downward pull. And so the center of mass, if it's outside of my base, that's a loss of balance. Okay, so I want center of mass over base of support. When I have an additional load like the kettlebell, or it can be any load, a barbell or something else, we have what's called the combined center of mass. It's the center of my body and the center of the kettlebell. So the combined center of mass, the kettlebell is vertically over my center of mass, vertically over my base of support. Okay? So when it's overhead, I don't want the load to be outside. Okay, so the load is vertically here, and my center and base are here, which means I have to struggle to hold it. Okay, I'm using too much effort. I want the load directly over. Okay, so the measurement we use is bicep to the ear. When the bicep is to the ear, then we know that the kettlebell will be over the feet. And now I'm using, again, my body mass and my skeletal structure to support the weight instead of just using the muscles to struggle, to strain against the weight. Okay? And then the third alignment point, so point 1, elbow fully extended. Point 2, bicep to the ear. Point 3 is we do not want excessive rotation in the shoulder. That means from here, I don't want the kettlebell to pull me into this rotated position, which will make the shoulder girdle less stable. Instead, the objective is the thumb is pointing towards the back. If I'm looking in the mirror, I will see that my pinky is forward and my thumb is back. What I don't want is this, where the palm is facing. That's too much rotation. Okay? I want the pinky forward and the thumb. It doesn't have to be on a 0 degree. It can be a slight angle, but the main point is that the pinky is forward and the thumb is behind. Okay? So, from here, I bring to the chest, that's the clean. We've studied that in detail. Now I come overhead. As you come overhead, the elbow is fully extended, the bicep is to the ear, the thumb is pointing back. And now the load is over my structure. Okay? If I look in the mirror, I see that my pinky and even my hand is still free. You see how I can wiggle my fingers? So it's the same position as in the clean. You're going to come here, and then in this position, the arm doesn't move and the kettlebell doesn't move. So you're just going to make a couple of circles, and as you circle around, the kettlebell's not moving. Okay, so you have that connection between your arm and body. So you're going to do about 2 slow circles clockwise, change direction, and 2 counterclockwise. breathing the whole time. Never holding the breath. Okay. So that's the overhead position. Just as in clean, we have what's called the static position. We hold it. It's the same thing overhead. You want to have the ability to hold it overhead. Okay, so let's try that. Bring the kettlebell to your chest. Bring it overhead. When you clean it to your chest, make sure your hand is all the way inside. So you're still reinforcing the same fundamentals that we've already learned. Okay, bring it overhead. Yes. Now continue to breathe, and then let's make slow circles. Let's just adjust this. Bring it one more time. There we go, right there. Yeah, okay, so 2 slow circles clockwise, 2 counterclockwise, and then you're going to switch hands and repeat on the other side. Great. How are you all feeling? Is everyone okay? All right, good.
So the question, ist die Schulter rechts, geht's gut, rechts habe ich gut. Rechts habe ich sie gut, so wenn ich das dann so ist. Ja. Aber links kann ich die Rotation, also
Like the flexibility.
ja.
So we have this, in his case, on the right shoulder everything's okay.
Hmm?
So he's flexible enough, but on the left side.
I can.
A slight this feels more comfortable? Okay, that's okay. Yeah, so that's a good question. Okay, so we have our what we would consider the ideals. So in a perfect setting, you know, the form points. However, in reality, we have to adjust the movement to fit our physiology. And we have one of the principles of exercise science is the law of individual differences. Okay, so even though there's certain principles which are universal, the law of individual differences says that essentially we have to allow for individual differences. So we all have different strengths, different weaknesses. We have different physiologies. We're essentially the same at the fundamental level, but we have some peculiarities. Some people have maybe one leg a little bit longer than the other leg, or it's not really the leg length, it's the pelvis. Actually, the pelvis might be a little bit tilted. No one is symmetrical. There's no one that's exactly symmetrical 50-50. That would be very boring, okay? So a lot of times in fitness we hear the term symmetry, that we're looking for symmetry, meaning we want the right and the left to be even. But it's more of like we can say it's like a lighthouse. You're sailing, and the lighthouse, so you think you're going in a straight line, you're not. You're actually doing this, but your vision is still going in the straight line. So the symmetry is sort of an ideal. We would like to have symmetry, so we want the right and the left to be equal strength, equal coordination, equal flexibility. However, we may never get to that point. Okay, but so the main point is using symmetry as an objective. We can reduce the asymmetry. So maybe there's a 70-30. If we can get it to 60-40, this is better. We will never get 50-50 probably, but maybe we can get 55-45, right? So what that means is, you know, the optimal position, thumb pointing back. That's what we're looking for because it's the most efficient point A to point B. There's no deviation. So it's the most efficient path, shortest distance between 2 points. However, in practice, if maybe you have an injury or just you have a difference in your flexibility, maybe this side is more flexible, I can have it, but this side not, I maybe have to rotate, and this feels more comfortable, it's okay. Okay, so you have to, the ultimate guide is your feeling, is how your body feels. You should never feel like you're straining. You should never feel like you're in pain. Understand the difference between pain and discomfort. Okay, we could say pain is bad. Discomfort, we embrace discomfort. Okay, we welcome discomfort because that's where we grow. We do not grow in comfort. We grow with challenge. Okay, so, but it's important to be able to understand the difference between pain and discomfort. Discomfort, you're working hard, you're tired, maybe you're having a bad day and you don't feel like doing the workout, but you do it anyway. That's discomfort. Okay, this is positive. Pain is you're causing injury. Okay, you should not work through pain because you will make the situation worse. The objective of training is never to beat you down, it's to build you up. In the process of building up, sometimes we have to break down to build up, but it has to be done in an intelligent manner. And over the course of many years is how you develop your progress, not in one day or 1 week. So in my case, I'm 49 years old and I have not injured myself in training, in a lifetime of training. It's not because there's any special qualities, it's because of applying these principles to practice. So you want to challenge yourself, but you do not want to injure yourself. Okay? And so any guideline that your trainer gives you, you try to achieve the objective, but if your body does not allow it, you have to try to find the position that works for you. Okay? And so that was an example of that. Okay, so we've covered the swing, the clean, and the press. You should all feel like you have a good understanding about this. Is there any questions before we continue? Okay, so now we're going to go into the squat. Okay, so I don't consider the squat is not really an exercise. So it's often taught as an exercise. It's not an exercise, it's a fundamental human movement pattern. It can be performed for exercise, but for example, if you take a young child, you do not have to teach them how to squat. Okay, they have a perfect squat with no training because it's an instinctual pattern. And if you look at not beautiful countries like Switzerland, but maybe you go to a place like Indonesia or many parts of India, what we would consider underdeveloped countries, you will see many times, especially in the more rural areas, you will see people working like this. These people do not do fitness. Okay, they do not have the economy for the luxury of fitness. They have to work. So basically, this is a natural pattern. Long before we had chairs, this was how we would sit, okay? Before we had plumbing, this is how we would go to the bathroom, right? So, naturally, the human does not need to be taught how to squat and how to come out of a squat. But in the modern world, we've spent so much of our lives sitting in cubicles and sitting in chairs and cars and couches. And so if this is your default range of motion, after 30 years your body will forget, or after 20 years maybe of, from 5 years old in school through the corporate world, okay, this becomes your default range of motion. Okay, and if you're not training, you're not doing this anymore. So when you achieve adulthood, the body stops, okay? It forgets. And so we have to remember how to use the movement to the full range of motion, okay? So again, a squat is a fundamental movement pattern, but it's considered fitness because it gives us stimulation, gets us tired, okay? So first we're going to just focus on the squat without weight, okay, just the body weight, and then we can add weight. You can use kettlebell, you can use barbell, you can use any type of implement to load the body. But if your mechanics are poor and then you start loading the body, you're going to create injury over time. So it's important to have good mechanics in the squat. Some cases we have injury, and you're not really going to try to train around injury. So as long as you're healthy, you don't have any knee or hip or ankle problems or spinal problems, then you can practice this. Okay, so the feet, the way that I teach the feet, it is natural for you. So it doesn't have to necessarily point forward. For some people, maybe this is a more comfortable position. It also will depend on your hip structure and your flexibility. But if you feel like the feet forward is restrictive, you can open a little bit. The key point is that your knee should be vertically aligned over your foot. Okay, so I don't want my knee on one plane and my foot on another. That's going to create unnatural stress on the ligaments here. We want the knee and the foot to have a vertical alignment. Okay, so if this is more comfortable for me, then that's my position. If this is more comfortable, then that's your position. So it doesn't have to be, again, symmetrical. Okay, maybe one turns out a little more than the other. It's what's natural. Okay, good. And so our objective, first of all, we need the range of motion in the ankle. If the ankles are very tight, as we start going below parallel, the weight will shift to the front and the heel will come up. So we want the ankle mobility to be able to sit with a flat foot. Okay, and next point is the hip mobility. If the hips are very tight, we tend to get stuck. So the hip flexors are responsible for actively pulling us into this bottom position. So we need adequate hip mobility. And then finally, trunk. Okay, the back. And with most people, this is a big limitation because we spend so much time in the frontal, and even more now than even a few decades ago with the, the smartphones and so on. We're always in these types of positions in our daily, computer screens. It's everything frontal. And gravity already is creating this downward pull on us. So we have to work against gravity. We want to move into extension because everything else that we're doing on a daily basis is pulling us into flexion. And if this continues to the extreme, then imagine 40 years from now. Okay, so we see sometimes elderly people like this. It's not inevitable. They're not that. It's education. Okay, in a few generations ago, we didn't have this knowledge. So the belief is that when you get to a certain age, your body will deteriorate and your body will lose function. That's only true if you stop using it. Okay, but if you understand the principles, then you can maintain your physicality and age gracefully, which is our goal. And that's the one thing we haven't figured out how to escape is aging. We all age. The question is, do we age sharp decline or can we have a gradual decline? And the benefit of aging is that what we can lose in physicality, we can more than make up for in experience and wisdom and education. Okay, so as far as the physical education, we don't want this. Okay, we don't want this because my center of mass is so far outside of my base I can't control. So I can easily lose balance. I could never lift the weight overhead. Instead, I want to have this upright position. Here, okay, I can fight from this position. I can control a weight from this position. Okay, my center of mass is, vertically over my base so I'm balanced. So this upright position instead of the flex position. Okay, so that's our objective. And what we're going to do here is we need to use some wall space, so it's okay if we clear some kettlebells. Okay, so we're going to use the mirrors to do some mobility movements, and we're just going to move the kettlebells out of the way a little bit here. Just a little bit. We just need just the first panel here. Okay. So we have wall space. We may have to do in two groups. One group, then the next, so we have enough space for everyone. So the drill here, it's called a face the wall squat. So the wall will prevent you from coming forward. Okay? The wall will force you to extend. Or not force you, but it requires that you extend. Okay, so if I come forward, the wall stops me. If I push my knees forward, the wall stops me. What we want is the toes touch the base of the wall, look straight forward, pull, extend. Now we squat. Okay, so this will reinforce the upright position. Okay, so let's try that. We should be able to maybe have 3 and 2, I think. All right. So your toes touch the base. You look straight forward. You retract your scapula, pull your scapula back. Pull the shoulders back, kind of push the chest forward. And let's do 5 reps. Okay, 5 controlled reps. So if you lose balance, we don't count that as a rep. We only always count correct or good reps. Sure. If it takes you 8 to get 5, that's okay. 5 good reps. Yeah, 5 good. Yep. And then shake it out. And then we're going to do one more set after this with a variation. So just do a recovery.
Pascal, was het ook? Wie is het voor mag gerachten?
Okay. We're going to do one more variation, a little bit more of a challenge. So now we bring the hands overhead. Okay. So when you're doing this, it's as if you're holding a weight. So it's not lax, it's stable. Okay. So if I had a bar, if there's weight here, I'm not going to control that. I have to lock it. Okay. So the elbows are fully extended. Now, same, but we have this overhead position. And again, in this case, we have to also extend the upper spine. If we don't extend the upper spine, this will drift forward and the wall will prevent you from squatting. So I open, okay? Open the chest, retract the scapula, the shoulder blades. Okay, so it's a face the wall overhead squat. Okay, let's try that. And again, 5 repetitions.
You know, that's what we talked about yesterday, about the hinge movement, where I started incorporating a little bit more of a squat swing variation, where I tend to get flex the knees a little more.
So it's a double pump instead of a single pump. You can say it that way. So if it was a single pump, it's hip, flex, hip extend, hip flex, hip extend. The double pump, hip flex, knee extend, knee flex, hip extend. So it's a hip knee versus just hip.
Oh, we were talking about the swing.
Yeah. I'm talking about the swing also. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if it's just the hip, it's hip flex, hip extend, hip flex, hip extend versus hip, knee, knee, hip, hip, knee, knee, hip. So the second variation is going to be more conducive to longer sets. First variation is going to be more shorter sets if you're trying to use, say, more strength, more heavier weight. Okay.
So that's what you said. That the style may change depending upon the weight, reps, and time.
Exactly. So this is more, we could say more of a lazy, where you're using kind of a moderate weight, working for a long period of time. But if you're using a very heavy weight, trying to develop, more power, then this is going to allow you to handle a heavier load.
And it also depends on, you have a stronger back or either you have stronger legs.
Exactly.
So,
yep.
Right.
Yeah, so they're both correct. It's just a different in style, and try both and see what feels good. Use them both at different times. Yeah? You're welcome. Okay. So now you should feel when you squat, imagine there's the wall in front of you, and just relax your hands, and you should feel like you can stay more upright in this position. Okay? So let's just try a squat and see if it feels a little easier to get in that position. Yeah. Okay. Good. So the face the wall squat is something you can do on a daily basis, not even necessarily in your workout, but just for mobility to release stress and get rid of tension. And it's not high intensity, so you're not going to overtrain by doing it. You can do, on a daily basis just as a therapeutic movement. Okay. All right. So now let's put these kettlebells back so we have a little more space. Yeah, I think so. Okay, so we use this is a good warm-up. I want to cover one more preparation. This is something that some people may need and others not. It depends on your hip mobility. But the idea again is we want to have the capacity to work to a full range of motion instead of just a partial range of motion. Okay, so I want to see everyone take a full squat, and when you get to your bottom position, I want you to stop and just stay in that position. And I just want to analyze what your range of motion is right now. Okay, and let's come up. Okay, so now we're going to do a partner drill. Some of you, the range of motion is already very good, but some of you, there's definitely some room for improvement. Okay, can you be my partner, please? Okay, and sorry, tell me your name again.
Gogo. Gogo. Ganz einfach.
Gogo.
Gogo.
Gogo. Go. Okay, so Gogo, if you don't mind, I would like you to show the class your squat. Okay? Yeah? Okay, so just go to the bottom and stop. Okay? Go ahead. Okay. So you see here that he's basically at about parallel, right? Can everyone see that? So he's kind of stopping, and from my analysis, without knowing any further, I would assume that there's room for improvement here. Okay? Okay, so come up. So right now you're about like this. Okay? And what I would like is I want to see if I can get you even lower, eventually maybe all the way down. Okay? So we want to, again, we don't want to use optical illusion or tricks. So whenever possible, at least to convince someone if they're skeptical, we want to be able to take some measurements so we can demonstrate the efficacy. Sometimes you don't have to, but in this case I will. So you're going to take again your bottom position. So if I measure the bottom of his thigh is coming about here. Well, it's coming to like just the bottom of my knee. That's where his hips are right now. Okay, so we're going to do an exercise, and then I'm going to measure again, and we're going to see if we can get some improvement. Okay? Okay, so one more time. Yeah, so right now it's 44. The bottom of his thigh is about 44. Okay? I want to see if I can get him maybe to about 32 or so. Okay, so the exercise, you lay on your back, please. Just lay down on the floor. Yeah, and let's come this way. Yeah, that's fine, that's fine. Okay, so, and just lay flat. Relax your hands, relax your head. Okay, so it's a partner. I'm going to have him pull his toes towards him. It's called dorsiflex. He pulls his toes in. And now you're going to pull your knees to your chest. So you're going to pull both knees to your chest like that and then extend. Yes. Okay? And I'm going to give him resistance pulling. So you pull against my resistance. So pull and then release. Again, pull. On the release, no stress. He's working on the pull. Okay, and I'm going to have him do about 6 to 8. Okay, I'm going to have him do maybe 3 more, okay? Okay. Pull, pull, pull. 1 more. Really pull, 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 and release. Okay, good. Let's come on up. Okay. Okay, so did you feel here? Okay, so now you're going to do the squat again. When you get to your bottom position, I want you to pull yourself. Use this in the same way and pull yourself down. Okay? So now it's at 34. I was off by 2 centimeters, but close. So, good job. So, about a 10 centimeter improvement, right? It's nothing magical. What is happening is it's an activation, So the previous exercise, it caused him to use these to be more active and more conscious. So now when he does the squat, he's more aware of this, and he's more active in the use of his hips. So he's able to get from here where he was to about here by pulling. Okay, does that make sense? So now you're going to feel.
Is this more something physically or?
No, it's physical. It's physical because it's not a flexibility. We would say it's an activation or recruitment. Basically, the movement is causing him to use these in a way that he has not been using them. The capacity is there, but probably just have not been doing things that require so much of this. So this exercise creates the necessity to pull. Okay. So it is a physiological, yeah. But we're going to see extreme, like that was a pretty drastic improvement for just doing one time. But if you're already here, you're not going to see much improvement. Okay, so it's going to be something that works with someone that does not have very good mobility. You can take them from poor to good. You're not going to take someone from very good to even better, right? If I do it, it's probably not going to show because my range is already very good, right? So that's why I say you use it as necessary. But certainly for anyone who's trainer, this is a very useful tool that you can put in your toolbox, use when appropriate. If your range of motion is pretty good, just doing the squat is sufficient because the movement itself works the range. But if someone is restricted in the range of movement, this exercise will show some improvement. And then after probably a few weeks, the body will learn the new pattern. Okay? And as I said before, it's not learning something new, it's remembering something that is instinctual, you know. So you were, as a child, able to do it, you know, and then your body sort of forgot, and now your body is remembering because the feeling, this brings the feeling again, okay? So let's try with your partner. You're going to pair off 2 by 2. You do about 6. Does everyone see? So I'm going to lay, I'm pulling, not like this. I want to dorsiflex. You're going to hold here, and I'm going to pull against the resistance. Give good resistance, but don't overpower. So allow them to move, but make them work for it. Okay, so let's try that. And then after you try, do your squat. Okay, so we're going to do the same. First do the squat. Just get a visual of what the range is. Do the exercise. Try to squat again and see if you can go deeper. And then switch and repeat on the other person. All right, let's try.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Is this exercise you would need to do every time before it's
I would for a while, for a few weeks. Yeah, just prior to squat. And then the squat itself, doing some repetition will reinforce. Yeah.
So that's an activation of the hip flexors, right?
Yeah, it's a I would say a hip flexor activation.
So neurologically, the
Yes.
capacity is there, but you have to get the impulses.
Exactly. You have to create the neuromuscular
the
mind.
connection, right?
Yes.
Mind-muscle connection. So
Yeah.
he knows, aha.
Yeah. It's a awareness and it's bringing attention to the.
So it's going deeper below parallel has a lot to do with the hip flexors, and that they have to.
Yes. Yeah, it has to do with the activity of the hips, not necessarily the flexibility so much as the recruitment.
The recruitment.
Yeah. That's pretty
Very
cool.
good, yeah.
Yeah.
And in his case,
How does it feel? It feel good? Do you feel looser? Yeah. Okay, good.
and in his case, it's awesome because we started with a feeling where he didn't know how to activate his hips.
Yeah.
Now his squat has already major improvement.
Yeah.
And now with this, it's
Even to the next level, yeah. So getting younger.
yeah, genau.
That's good range of motion. So some improvement. Yeah? Good improvement? Okay, good. And you want to feel for yourself.
Ah, ja.
Already pretty good. So see, maybe we can improve.
So, doing it on your own will probably be a good option using a power band tucked to a...
Yeah, to replicate, I would say the optimal. Do you have a pulley system?
I gotta...
Yeah, so that would be how I would replicate it. Sometimes if they have a pulley system, you use like an ankle harness.
Yeah. I got one on...
Yeah, so for example, you could put one of those ankle, the leather, you know, the leather ankle or something like that, and so it's continuous tension. This you can try to replicate, but better is manual because you can control the
resistance.
Yeah, where this you kind of have to find the perfect. It might be tricky, but yeah. But if you don't have someone to do it with,
be an option.
yeah. Actually, another is I don't know what I sometimes do is like if you have inversion boots, you hang from a bar upside down, and you can work it that way.
I
Yeah.
had them, but I sold them because I thought it was too dangerous.
Yeah, for the gym it is. Yeah, someone pass out.
But yeah, someone dropped, you know. But
Yeah.
incredible.
Very impressive.
Cool. Yeah, it's a cool drill. And you both have an improvement in?
Yes.
Yeah? Did anyone not have any improvement? No? Already very good? Okay. Yeah, so she's already, range of motion is very good already. Careful, don't hit your head. Oh yeah. Can even see.
Nothing fits under it. Wow, 7 or 8.
Okay, good. Have to start digging a hole in the ground pretty soon. Okay, so that's very, very useful. And so now all of you have some improvement in the range of motion that was there, but it was sleeping. Now it's awake, right? Okay, so we have our bottom position. Now we can start loading because the mobility is improved. So let's get your kettlebell. And we're going to start squatting with the kettlebell. And then after this, probably I won't do any new exercise. Now I'll show you some ways of combining everything you learned up to this point, combining them in different ways, and you can start doing workouts with them. Because I prefer to just do a few things in depth than do many things superficially. And you know, if we do 20 things, you probably forget. So we do 4 or 5 and you will remember and get better. Okay, so this is usually called the goblet squat because we hold it like goblet is like a big wine glass, right, from King Arthur times. So we have this like a big wine glass. The arms are close. We're not holding like this. We're keeping the elbows close and the arms connected to the body. So the arm and body is like one. Okay, so this is how I like to position. There's a couple different ways to do it, but you hook one hand like a one-hand swing, other hand hook over, and then cat. So the handle's down, okay? Inhale down, exhale up. Inhale down, exhale up. Okay? Let's try that. If you're going to do one set of 10, go at your own pace. And again, just keep the elbows in as close as you can, not letting them drift out to the side. Okay, good. And we'll do another variation. That's a goblet squat. This is a front squat. Front squat is performed with the clean. So you clean and you're going to hold it in the clean position. The other hand will counterbalance. So inhale down, exhale up. Okay, you'll do 5, switch hands, and 5. 5 and 5. And again, pull yourself down in the bottom position. Get your hand inserted deep into the handle, so you don't want the wrist bent. You want it all the way inside, like your hand's in a glove. Okay, now we're going to start putting these together in some different combinations. So next one's going to be a squat into a press, first with 2 hands. Okay, so same setup from here. You're going to do 1 squat, inhale down, exhale up, press. Okay. You're going to do 5 reps. So bring it here, and then 5 down and up is 1. And full extension in the elbows at the top, so fully straighten your arms. Okay, same thing, now one hand. So you do one clean, squat from here, drive up. Inhale down, exhale up. Inhale down, exhale up. Okay, you're going to do 5, switch hands, repeat on the other side. Inhale down, exhale up. Okay, so 5 and 5. And continuous breathing, focusing on the exhale, so multiple breaths. If you're not sure of the timing, just remember, keep exhaling, keep exhaling. Okay. Now, one clean, one squat, one press for each repetition. Okay, so it's clean, squat, press, repeat. Clean, squat, press, repeat. Clean, squat, press. Okay? So you do clean every rep this time. Again, for 5 on each side. Okay, good. And now we do the same thing but with a different timing. So what we just did is we did on a 3 count. So we did a clean, 1, a squat, 2, a press, 3. Okay, so 3 count. This time we're going to do on a 2 count. So the clean and the squat is going to be done at the same time. Okay, so again, instead of clean, squat, which is what you just did, now you're going to squat at the same time as the clean. So it looks like this. See the difference? So it's squat, press. So drop down and then press. Okay? Do you understand the difference on the timing? Instead of 1, 2, it's 1. Okay, so just faster. 5 reps again on each side. Yeah, so basically you pull yourself under. As soon as the kettlebell reaches chest level, you drop. Okay, good. Okay, back to swing. Now, introduction to juggling, but very basic. Okay, juggling is where you're spinning and throwing the kettlebell, but we're not going to get too complex in an indoor setting because the kettlebell will drop when you're studying. So we're going to keep it real simple. We're going to go to a two-hand swing, which you already learned. Okay, so two-hand swing. Okay. But this time, as the kettlebell reaches the top position, you're going to flip. Your hands are going to go like that. So we're going to get the kettlebell to spin, and then you're going to catch it here. It looks like this. Okay? And so the handle's up. Now you just let it fall straight down and catch by the handle. So it's... As you catch, the arms are against the body. Okay, you don't want to catch with just your arms because the force is very dynamic with a spinning bell. So keep the arm close to the body. Okay, so from here, flip, catch. Don't overthink it. Okay, it's not as complicated as it may look if you haven't tried it. It may seem advanced, but it's very simple. Just relax as much as you can. Flip and bring your hands to your chest, just like that. Okay, let's try. Yep. So not too far in front. If it's too far in front, you end up catching with your biceps. You want it to almost, it's going to hit you. It's going to hit you in the face. You bring your hands up. Okay, so you pull it into you. Yeah. And so you want to try to catch it in the bottom so the handle's facing up. Okay, so it does literally a full spin. Actually 3/4 of a spin. Yeah, that's correct. Good. Good. Good? Okay. And one more variation of this is the same movement with a squat. Okay? So as you spin and catch, as soon as you catch, you drop into the squat. As you come up, you kind of pop it and you catch. So the movement is the same, but adding a squat. Good.
Concerning the juggles, do you think it is, oh, would you consider it as a fundamental or a
No,
additional?
it's its own category. So you can say there's 4 categories. There's general fitness. It's a mixture of different planes of motion. There's competition, or what's called classical, which is the kettlebell sport. There's juggling, which is its own category. And then there's feats of strength. Yeah. So this would be, juggling would be its own category.
Its own category.
Yeah. But you know, most of the juggling is, you know, not going to do it so much on the indoor because there is going to be some drops, especially when you start spinning, you know, in different directions.
Yeah,
so
different
yeah, it's like sand or, you know, a soft.
Even though we have
you could, if it's not, maybe not with a full class because but if you had just a couple people, yeah, the rubber floor.
Is rubber floor about 2 centimeters.
Yeah, so
thick,
if it drops, there's no problem. Yeah, so in this, maybe 3 or 4 people, but with a group like this, they can start bouncing around and, you know, hit the ground and bounce into
And what
some of
would be
them.
the advantages? Maybe you
Well,
can share that with-
coordination. Yeah, so this is really fundamental, real basic juggling. We can get into more complex juggling patterns, which we're not going to do today, but so there's, yeah, see, sometimes it drops. So that's why, you know, outdoor rubber floor. It's sort of its own category of kettlebell movement, and obviously hand-eye coordination, dynamic grip, because the spinning, it's going to put a lot more torque than just swinging it. But what I showed you today are pretty basic juggles, just to get you comfortable with releasing and catching. And in an indoor setting, it's relatively safe because it's simple. But we start spinning it and you need a little bit more space because you're going to drop it sometimes. It's just how it is. All right. Okay, so before we, I think probably that's enough content on the kettlebell, but before we go any further, first, is there any questions on what we've done today as far as review? And then second, is there any questions on maybe some other exercises that we didn't do today that you have an interest in or that you've done before and would like some clarification about. So you can ask about anything that we did or anything that we haven't done that you're interested in. You're okay? Everyone understands? Okay, so what I want to do for the remainder, we have about another half hour. So I think that's enough with the kettlebell because the volume, cumulatively, you're doing a good amount of volume today. And I want you to be able to come back and do more tomorrow. So I want to use the last part. I want to show you some very special breathing exercises. So let's put the kettlebell away. And then for the next section, you actually can sit down. If you want to sit on the bench or sit on the floor, you're just going to be relaxed. I'll explain the process and then we're going to do some breathing exercise. And there's often discussion about what is the most important parameter or quality of fitness. And the answer usually is going to be prejudice based on the person's experience. So if someone is a power lifter, they're going to say strength is the most important. If someone is say a long distance athlete, they're going to say endurance is most important. But how do you choose what? So is power the most important? Is speed the most important? Is strength the most important? Is endurance the most important? What about flexibility? What about mobility? What about coordination, agility? So these are different athletic qualities. In sports, there's usually going to be specialization. So depending on the athlete in the sport, they will have certain skills which are developed in that sport. And by nature, there's other skills that they avoid. So for example, a power lifter, they're lifting heaviest weight. They can lift for 1 repetition. They're doing 3 movements, a deadlift, a squat, and a bench press. So a power lifter's specialty is going to be maximal strength. However, they don't train endurance. So their aerobic capacity is going to be very poor. In most cases, the flexibility is going to be very poor. In most cases, if they're not doing anything besides powerlifting, their coordination and agility also, there's no development there. So we could say that's very much of a specialization. On another extreme, maybe you have someone that is a triathlete or a marathon runner. Their specialization is going to be cardiovascular fitness. So they're going to have a high degree of cardiorespiratory or what's called VO2 max, but they're not developing power. They're not developing speed or strength in that type of training, right? So the question again is, what is the most important and how do you differentiate one being more important? Because actually we want to improve our strength, we want to improve our endurance, we want to improve our flexibility, we want to improve speed and power. They're all important. Okay, coordination is important as well. So I don't think there's any correct answer to that. I think that the answer is all qualities are equally valuable. We want to, for general well-being, we want to develop a well-rounded ability in all areas. That's one path. Another path is you specialize in 1 or 2 areas. But when you specialize in one area, you're neglecting other areas. Okay? So what I would say the most important skill or practice of anything, it's breathing. It's nothing to do with the fitness specifically. The breath is the most fundamental to everything that we're doing and to life. And if you doubt that, well, just stop breathing. Okay? And we see very quickly how important it is. So we can live for several days without water. Most people can go at least 3 days or more with no water. We can go for 3 weeks or more with no food, but most people cannot go more than 3 minutes without air. Okay, so if you hold your breath, you're going to pass out. So The breathing is the single factor that is involved with everything that we're doing, not just in fitness, but in life. And the breath is our power. It is how we deal with stress, is how we control the environment in terms of the stresses that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, and also how we deal with the stress of fitness. When you stop breathing, you have no energy, you have no oxygen, and so you cannot perform. Okay? So what I want to do with you now is a very powerful breathing exercises. First of all, breathing is as old as life itself, so there's no start point. I believe we've all been breathing since the early origins of humanity, going back probably more than 10,000 years that we can trace our human history. And all life form, in fact, has an exchange of oxygen. So regardless of what you're doing or what you're not doing, the breathing is the one constant. You're not always going to be lifting weights, you're not always going to be running, you're not always going to be doing push-ups, but you're always going to be breathing. Further, not everyone can exercise. So if someone is in a wheelchair, many things are going to be restricted, but everyone breathes, regardless of the best athlete in the world or the least capable, and everyone in between. That's the one universal that we all have to do. And so what I'm going to share you is derived from what's called it's called the Wim Hof method. Wim Hof is a person. Anyone heard about the Wim Hof method? Okay, so he's become quite famous, maybe not so famous because you haven't heard of him, but he's a very famous guy now. In the last several years, he's been doing his method for probably 30 or 40 years, but he's from Holland, he's from Amsterdam, and a long time ago, the media, local media, they said, oh, this guy's crazy, but somehow in the last few years, he became very famous. He's worked with a lot of famous people and not famous. The point is not fame. I don't care about that. But the point is that his work has captured the attention. And his background is very extensive in yoga. He was the first person to translate the ancient yoga texts from Sanskrit into Western languages. I think into German, English, and Dutch. So his background is in yoga. All yoga systems study breathing. In fact, that is the practice of yoga, the meditation and the breathing. If you don't have that, then you're just doing calisthenics. So a lot of the stuff that's called yoga is not actually yoga. It's calisthenics that looks like yoga, but the actual yoga is the breathing. So what's unique about Wim Hof compared to any other system of breathing exercise that you can learn in yoga systems or meditation systems is Wim has the science. So Harvard and some other universities took an interest in him. Harvard did a study, and now they're actually rewriting the medical texts because of the research, because of what he's proven through his system. And he's a living person that is alive now, which is interesting. And so they're having to rewrite their understanding about the human body because of what they're finding through these studies. And so the study, and then I'll just give you a little background and then I'm going to teach you the basic exercise of the breathing. The study that they did is they injected him first with a virus, which was Ebola. You guys have probably heard of the Ebola virus. So they injected him with Ebola and he didn't get sick from it. So it wasn't very powerful. It was a low concentration. So the symptoms would be like a flu-like symptom, congestion, headache, shivers, fever, mucus, these types of things, like a flu. They injected him with the virus. He didn't get sick. So initially they said, oh, he's just a freak of nature. He's just an aberration. He's one in a billion, and they didn't really give it much credence. Then they commissioned a study. He had 24 people, or maybe it was 20. I think it was 20 people. 10 in the control group and 10 in the experimental group. And this was a Harvard study. And basically they injected them with the virus. The experimental group was all trained in the Wim Hof method. The other group was not trained in the Wim Hof method. Everyone in the control group got ill. Everyone had symptoms. In the Wim Hof group that was trained, none of them got sick. So then they said, oh, okay, there's something more to this. And so he has 26 world records of Guinness. I met him. I had the benefit of meeting him about 2 years ago. Amazing human being. He's spreading love all around the world, helping people reclaim their vitality, reclaim their health. And so I always give respect to people that deserve it. You know, if I learn about them, they have something interesting. I believe I see myself as a student. I like to learn from anyone that has knowledge that I don't have that can benefit me. So he's an amazing individual, very powerful. He has 26 Guinness Book World Records. Some of them include he climbed Mount Everest with no clothes, just shorts. And 500 meters from the base, he got frostbite. He had to stop. So he was 500 meters short, but he climbed basically almost the entire thing. And he got frostbite on his feet. The physician said, we have to amputate. He said, no, I will heal it with my mind. And he healed it with his mind. And this is all true, all verified. They filmed it. There's lots of information on YouTube. You can see documentaries about him. So all of this information is out there. He also has world records for holding his breath. He did a TED Talk on stage where the commentator was talking and he was in a tank, kind of like a Harry Houdini tank. And they filled it to ice. So he was standing just in his bathing suit. They filled the ice to here. He stayed in for almost 2 hours of just pure ice. He also ran the world's hottest marathon, which is in Africa I think every July or August. It's in the Namib Desert in Morocco. He ran the marathon with no water. He didn't drink any water, and he didn't train for it. He said it was just to test his theory. He believed that if you can withstand extreme cold, you can also withstand extreme heat. So he did that to validate his theory. And he has other records. He did an underwater swim in the Arctic where they literally had to drill holes in the ice, frozen lake. And it was 6 minutes underwater with no breathing, no oxygen tank, just holding the breath. His eyes actually froze. They dug a hole, and then I think it was 500 meters or so. And then they dug the other hole, and maybe 100 meters short of the target, his eyeballs froze and he couldn't see. He didn't know where he was, but he just kind of figured it out, and he was able to do it and came out. So really interesting. His nickname is the Iceman. So basically, now what he does is he goes around the world and he teaches these breathing exercise and then cold. And the validation, the cold, as he says, the cold is my warm friend. So the cold, and you don't necessarily have to do the ice bath. You can use the cold shower. So you do the breathing exercise, and then you take a cold shower or you take an ice bath. And the two together are very powerful. And the cold, there's a lot of benefits to it, but it has to do with the vascular system, because the vascular system, if you were to unwind it, it's something like 8 million miles, of all these veins and arteries that are going all throughout the body. So the cold has an effect to increase the health. And what they've shown in the universities is this method improves your immune function, reduces inflammation, has all types of healing properties, stress reduction, and vitality and so on. So he's helping people to overcome the use of medications and things like that, because many people are addicted to opiates and they go to the hospitals and then they become addicted to painkillers and things like this. So he's basically helping people to escape the trap of modern medicine. I think Switzerland, you have a beautiful country. It's very sophisticated, and I think your medical system here is probably very good, but that's more the exception than the rule. Like in America, it's a complete corrupt system, you know, where it's just like a factory and people just go in and they just never are able to come out because they get addicted to the surgeries and the, you know, it's not medicine, it's basically a disease culture is what it is. And so he's helping people to overcome that through the power of the mind. And so when I became familiar with his work, with my background in martial arts and fitness, it was natural for me to want to go deeper, and I've implemented his training into my practice, and it's the most important aspect of practice. It's the fundamental thing that I will practice every day, even if I don't train or do anything else. And so in terms of reducing your aging and improving your energy, your vitality, improving your ability to heal, it's all in there. And he's proving that it's through the power of the mind and the conscious direction of your mind, using your breath, that you're able to heal your body. Okay, so I won't go into any more of the science, but you can read up about it if you're interested more about his story. And it's really an amazing story, and it comes out of trauma, but as I mentioned earlier, we learn to become comfortable with the discomfort. And so cold is a great example because almost everybody loves a warm shower. We like warm shower, it feels good, but the cold is actually better for you. It's more healthy. Okay, so they're reducing the inflammation. And inflammation is not just if you get hit and you get a bruise, that's external inflammation. But we all, to different degrees, have internal inflammation where the soft tissue and even the organs themselves will become inflamed. And this is the cause of a lot of the diseases that we have. And it's you wouldn't necessarily know that you had inflammation unless there was some, you know, an MRI or something that was measuring it internally. But a lot of inflammation comes from stress. A lot of inflammation comes from the modern lifestyle. So noise pollution, environmental toxins, especially from poor nutrition. If you're eating foods that are very acidic in nature, a lot of fried foods, a lot of red meats, things like this, a lot of alcohol, other types of drugs. These all will create inflammation in the body. And that's why if you meet some people, they have a hard time healing or they're always sick, is because their internal body is in a constant state of inflammation. And we can reverse this through the proper education, through the proper technology. And so basically, in the modern times, we don't really use our breathing capacity. The only time people normally breathe heavy now is when you're doing exercise. But genetically, ancestrally, the tribes that we all descended from thousands of years ago, there was a time when we were, or our ancestors at least, were constantly under a state of adrenaline and heightened awareness because we were not the dominant beasts. We didn't have the cities and the kingdoms. We were among the other animals, and so maybe there's a bear chasing you or some animal chasing you and you like this, okay, in the hunter-gatherer times. So we were, in our ancestral times, we were always in a heightened state of awareness of fight and flight and hunting and either hunting or being hunted. And so we had to fight and we had to use our physicality. And so we were very vital. And in the modern times, we're basically sitting and we're only moving, like walking from our house to our car or from a car to work, or, you know, to get the cup of coffee, right? Or when we exercise in the gyms. But most of us, it's just the nature, it's not to single anyone out, it's the nature of our society. Most of us, we don't work with our bodies, we work with our mind, and we're using the digital world to do our work now. And so as a result, we're not moving, and so now in the modern times we have fitness to sort of offset the negative effects of the modern lifestyle, which is not natural because we've changed in our consciousness, but we haven't changed in our physiology. Our physiology is the same physiology as our ancestors from thousands of years ago. So that hasn't changed, but the lifestyle has changed dramatically, right? So anyway, the basic idea, then we'll get into the exercise, is you can look at it as the pH scale. Okay, the pH scale is fundamental to all living, all biological forms. Okay, so basically, the 0.7 is considered neutral. Okay, and then above 7 is alkaline, below 0.7 is acid. Disease exists in acid. Disease cannot exist in alkaline. So what that means is we want to bring our body into a state of alkalinity, which is where disease cannot flourish. When our body becomes too acidic, this is when we get sick. Okay? If you forget about illness and you look at training, when you're doing an exercise and your muscles start to burn and you start to run out of breath, that's because your body is becoming acidic. So when the body gets too acidic, you have to stop and you have to regulate and let the body return to a more alkaline state. So the point is, if you understand the mechanism, you can consciously bring yourself to stay in the alkaline, and the resultant performance is you're going to be able to have much greater endurance. You're going to be able to sustain your effort for an extended period of time, as well as being less stressed, less sick, less angry, all of these things. Okay? Okay, so that's the basic science. Is the exhale is the acid. So we exhale the acid, the inhale is the alkaline. We want to bring in the alkaline. We want to eliminate the acid. Okay, that's kind of a simple way to use the pH as a reference. The Chinese talk about yin and yang. There's many different ways to say the same thing. Okay, it's that balance, and we want to be more towards the alkaline and not too much towards the acid. Okay, so having given you a little bit of background, the technique is normally you would do 3 or 4 rounds. Okay, but you can do 1 or 2, but you get best benefit if you do 3 or more rounds. So we're going to do probably about 3 rounds. And a round consists of, you're going to do about 30 repetitions, 30 breaths. Okay, and it's not so much a fixed number. 30 is just a general guide. It can be 20, it can be 40. More important is you have to do according to the feeling, not the number. But we're just, for the sake of the group, we're going to say 30. Okay, so the inhale is you fill belly, chest, head. So you belly, chest, head, because the head is a cavity. So you fill the breath into the head. So it's, and you release. The exhale is shorter than the inhale. Okay, so you just release. You don't force the air out. You just let it go. So it's belly, chest, head, let it go. Belly, chest, head, let it go. Okay?